thanks so much to everybody coming out. My name is Laural Carr. I'm a group benefit consultant. My job in putting this together is to talk with experts, create conversation and engagement, and to give us little nuggets that we can take away, apply to our own practice, and ultimately create more success in both our work, professional and personal lives. I am so pleased to have made wonderful connections over the last couple of years and great friendships. Lissa is one of my friends, and she is a culture builder. She's an expert in the Strong Impact Academy. She keeps me on my toes. We have great conversations. Take a moment to introduce yourself, Lissa.
Hi, everybody. Great to see some familiar faces and great to see some new faces too. So my name's Lissa Daub. I am the founder of the Strong Impact Academy, and I focus on strengths-based coaching and training and leadership to help develop really strong people-first cultures. And I just want to add, I really loved the conversation earlier about the pets interrupting meetings and kids, and it has really blurred the lines and the boxes between work and home. And I think that is so important when you're building a strong culture.
I want to start today with what we've been talking about for 2 to 3 weeks now, you and I. We've been talking about the chicken and egg. Take me through the chicken and egg, which I will fully say, full disclosure, I've stolen it over and over again, but I do attribute it sometimes to Lissa.
Yeah. So Laurie and I were chatting, and I was like, because I'm very curious. And I'm like, so does employee engagement drive culture, or does culture drive employee engagement, right? And it is such a chicken and egg question, because it really depends. And again, Laurie and I could talk about this all day. And so, it got me thinking a little bit about, well, really, what is employee engagement, right? We throw this word around all the time, but what does that even mean? We get it, we know it when we see it, but the Gallup definition of it is involvement and enthusiasm of employees in their work and workplace. Right. So it's that, and Richard Haddon in his book, right, Contented Cows, they talk about discretionary effort, but it's not necessarily staying late. Like, you could leave work at 5 p.m. because that's what time you're done, but you can still be an engaged employee, right? You might just also be really engaged in your family and have other things that you do outside of work. So honestly, the chicken and egg, it really is a chicken and egg, because I think it goes both ways, and I think they really complement each other. If you have a great culture, you have a better chance of having engaged employees. If you have engaged employees, right, you have a great chance of having a really great culture. And what is company culture? It's the way we do things around here. Right?
And it's synonymous, right? I don't think you can have one without the other. You can't get to that egg without cracking that shell. And there is an intention to that. And I think that is a key. I love the metaphor, and I can go with it all day long, I guess, and we'll get hungry as we get up to lunchtime. But the thing is it does need intention, and it does need strategy. And we are talking about the Great Resignation, but I challenge, again, with Lissa's conversation, I challenge it to say, is it the great choice? So we all know Michael Kerr has said, if you have great culture, the Great Resignation doesn't even apply to you. It's just not even, like, you can just water off a duck's back. But if you are suffering from turnover, I spoke to somebody the other day, it was 100% turnover, in the last 2 years. I know, Natasha, I know. And you look at that and go, what is that costing you? Right? What does that cost you? That is a choice. That offers a great opportunity for a corporation to say, "Whew, that bridge is obviously burnt. Let's start." How do you work with your clients to say, okay, we're going to move from the embers, we're going to move from the ashes, and we're going to start to do something with intention and strategy?
Well, I think first you need to understand, like, what does your company stand for? Right? It's not enough to say that, you're a benefits advisory company. Well, that's great. How many of those are out there? An insurance company. That's great. Why am I going to work with you? And so, you go back to Simon Sinek, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And that is such a strong thing. And it becomes the foundation of your company culture, right? What is your purpose? It's not, every business exists to make people's lives better, but how are you making people's lives better? And what is the driving force behind that? Right. And that's where your vision or your mission, your core purpose statement, your brand promise, your values, all of that stuff becomes the foundation for your company culture. Now, it's not enough to have those words on the wall. Natasha knows this very well, right? You have to walk the talk. You can't just say, here are our 5 core values and this is what we believe in, but nobody's actually doing that. Nobody's respecting the other person, or integrity is, well, when it makes sense to us, right? And the thing is when you have that great company culture and you have those engaged employees, it's not just the right thing to do. It's not fluffy, which is, I get that all the time. It's like, what you do is so fluffy. And it's like, no, it's not. Because companies that have a good company culture and good employee engagement are on average 23% more profitable than those with, that high turnover and all of that stuff, where it's chaos.
It's not just a sales coach going in and saying, you know what, we're going to close more sales and we're going to give you double-digit increase to revenue. It has to have that intentionality. There has to be, and something that I come across as well is you can have the great culture that is sitting stagnant. And what I mean by that is the company itself has all of the wonderful elements that it needs. It has everything. Laural knows this really well. They have everything in play, but they have no ability to execute it or to communicate it to their staff. Those great leaders, those great people who have been taught how to do that, they know how to break that barrier.
I think it's more than that, because again, it's walking the talk. But I think sometimes what happens, and as organizations get bigger and bigger, you think you have a great culture, but what are the subcultures that are happening? So I think that's what's so important, to make sure that everybody is on the same page. And that might mean saying the same things over and over and over again. Start your meetings. I love it in the, trades, fields, construction industry, stuff like that. They always start a meeting with a safety moment. Well, why not also start it with a core values moment? Tell me where you saw somebody living one of our core values this week. And then you start to create the story of your company, which is, so much more, rather than, it's icy in the parking lot today, so be careful, right? There's your safety moment, but it's like, have a core values moment and get everybody kind of aligned with that and living and breathing that.
I like what you say, there's a million ways to make $1 million.
Right. Yep.
That's but what's the difference that you're making while you're making that $1 million?
Yeah, because again, it's all, I worked for a sand and gravel company, and the core purpose was about improving people's lives in the communities and areas where we worked. It had nothing to do with the fact that we were, putting gravel on the roads, or it was part, we were supplying asphalt companies and stuff like that. It was more about, my boss used to say is, if we do well what we're supposed to be doing, nobody even knows that we exist, because the roads are smooth and there aren't giant potholes and there aren't all this stuff, and that improves people's lives. Right? So how are you improving people's lives? And it doesn't matter what your company is, it needs to stand for that.
I think when companies are doing it well, I love, Leanne, that you start with that moment of gratitude. That is a great way to open up a meeting. I know Natasha with her team has done a bit of bookends, right? How to start your day, how to end your day. And when we utilize or take those nuggets into our own corporations, I don't think that we then need a rule that says our employees have to end work at 5 o'clock, like they have that after hours legislation now in Ontario, where if you send a note that happens to go into your employees and they answer it after hours, well, you can be fine. But a company with good cultural intention will do those natural bookends from the day. It doesn't matter whether you're virtual or in person or multiple offices or teams. And it really does come down to that communication. How do you work when you're working with those leaders in the organization? Lisa, you have those tough conversations. What are some of those tough conversations? What they look like?
I think I think so much of what I do, because I'm so passionate about creating great cultures where, typically I'll start working with a client and it's because they're complaining about their team isn't doing what they need them to do. And it's like, okay, well, it's probably not your team, but let's have that conversation, right? Let's see where things are going. So, the foundations for employee engagement is making sure everybody knows what's expected of them and giving them the materials and the tools they need to do their job well, and giving them the opportunity to do what they do best every day. So, and that isn't about, I can't look at you, Lori, and say, this is what you do best every day, because it becomes a very personal thing. So it's about, again, we talk about, well, I'm doing all the things right. I'm having annual performance reviews. Well, that's great. But guess what? People are more engaged if they get feedback 3 times a week versus if they get feedback once a year. And what does a performance review become? And I know this is like sacrilegious because I'm an HR professional, but it's not about you could have this amazing performance review process that you do once a year. It's not motivating anybody. If anything, I see more conflict, more turnover, more contentious type stuff after a performance review that you think is supposed to be motivating. So why are you doing it? Right? Like,
well, if you want continuous improvement from your teammates, then continuous feedback given in a positive manner, that is under a coaching manner, is going to achieve that. If I have to wait a whole year to find out that I messed up on a project from March of last year, it means nothing to me. Why are you bringing it up now? I've forgotten about it and we've moved on. And it's only going to make me angry and say, that's what my supervisor remembers. They don't remember the extra time I put in on September's project. Timing really matters. What I'm really curious about, because we have so many incredible people in today, and with permission, what I would love to do is, if you can unmute or put your hand up or whatever, I'd like you to share one piece of culture, regardless of whether it's where you work now or where you worked before, that stuck with you to the point that it does become part of your routine with your staff, with your teams, where we nurture and grow. Because I have stolen all of your ideas, and quite frankly, we want to steal more.
I actually just put it in the chat that after we take on any new initiative, or any of our clients take on a new initiative, we use a tool that we've created called the Best First Action Planner, because whatever hasn't gone right, we just say, going forward. We never look back and blame or, dissect what happened. We just go, okay, from this point forward, we will always do this and we will never do this. And so therefore our first action is whatever. So that's my tip. And we actually make that planner available to anyone on our website who'd like to download it. Or you can come to one of our master classes to hear more about it. But yeah, it's really, we don't look back and, look at what went wrong, other than what can we correct going forward.
And a great way to keep the communication forward facing.
I also put mine in my chat, and I thought it was relevant to what Lisa was talking about in terms of living your core values. So we have a peer-to-peer recognition program, which Lisa can talk about the stats about how peer-to-peer recognition goes so much further than manager to employee recognition. And so our staff, once a month with our monthly managers meeting bulletin get sent digital wow cards. And so you can complete a wow card for any of your colleagues who you find exhibit one of our 4 values. So passion, happiness, innovation, and teamwork. So what it would look like is a PDF, and I would fill it out for Lori. I'd put in her name for exhibiting passion. And then you would put in the comment section, say, I saw Lori last week go above and beyond with this little old lady client who had no idea what she was doing, yada, yada, yada. They all get put into our quarterly newsletter, so everyone can see them. And it's so great to be able to see, like people from different departments recognizing other employees, or, leadership recognizing someone who's in processing or who's just started. And then once a year at our annual winter party, I compile all of them, and whoever has the most wow cards from the year, they get an award and they get a medal. Like I actually go and make a medal, and it's like a big star and it's gold and it says wow award on it. And then they get presented that at the winter party. So yeah, it's a great little program we have. And again, super simple, costs nothing, and just does so much for building your culture.
And I can imagine that so many people probably don't realize the little things that they're doing are being recognized, right?
Totally.
Like it's so often that way.
I do really value all the comments, and I really second all the initiatives. From my side, I'm trying as well to focus on the present, not on the past, not on the future, because the past is gone and the future is still ahead. So my focus is always on the present, because I do believe that when we address the topics as they are happening, we allow the person to make tweaks and changes that are instant, and really by doing it themselves is the best learning. Sometimes we really have the great intentions. When we receive a constructive feedback, we really acknowledge it, we believe in it, and we know it's true, and we have the greatest intentions to make it different the next time it happens, but we don't know if we're going to have the opportunity to really make that impact, because people tend to believe what is their perception and what they have seen in the past. I am really trying within my team, within my department, to really raise that culture, to say we are now in the present, let's work together, let's share feedback instantly and work together to address those opportunities as they occur. I do appreciate really what all the discussions that happened are really true. We learn for a better future, but the present is really sometimes undermined, and there should be really a stress on where we are today.
Yeah, something that I learned from the world of software development, agile software development, is a practice called retrospectives, which I don't know if anyone has heard of, but I think it can apply to any project, which is essentially when it's done, you get everybody together and have a safe space to express, frustrations, celebrate people, take stock of lessons learned, figure out, what you don't want to repeat next time, what you do want to repeat next time. And one of the things I like about it is that you learn things that it takes some of the pressure off you as the CEO or boss or manager or whatever you might be, to be the only person recognizing folks, because you might not have been there at 11:30 p.m. when the whatever PowerPoint blew up and somebody had to recreate it from scratch and you never heard about it. But the person who got help with that definitely remembers, and it's an opportunity to recognize it, and also to not have people carry these emotions for then into the next project without expressing them, or the whole year, so that it blows up at the performance evaluation.
Oh, fantastic. And yeah, Lissa has said we've had conversations. You don't know what you don't know. So what's the first step? So let's imagine that we're now in the rubble and we have an opportunity to rebuild based on great experiences with great people, and we want to get started.
I think the first thing, and it really speaks to what Josh just talked about, and Sandy, really is about creating that psychological safety. So creating that safe space for employees to really, it's okay to make a mistake, and then let's talk about it and let's learn from it. One of the biggest mistakes I always see, leaders are either really, they don't address unmet expectations or issues quickly enough. It's like, oh, well, their review's coming up in 3 months, we'll talk about it then. Or they do this thing, and please, if you do this, please stop doing it. Don't do the sandwich thing where it's like, okay, I have to redirect this person, so I'm going to talk about I'm so happy you were here on time this morning. And then I'll get into that thing that I'm upset about. And then I'll end with something positive. I mean, for so many years, that's how we were told to share bad news. No, separate those out. It's like, if you have to redirect an employee, you sit down, you have that conversation in a supportive way. It's like, hey, this happened. This does not meet expectations. How can I help you? You know, do you need training? Do you need this? Like, what do you need to be able so that this doesn't happen again? Right. So again, it becomes that psychologically safe space. It's not like you're not going to yell at them for making a mistake if they maybe didn't know. So again, I've got stats on the brain this week, but like 50% of employees don't know what's expected of them. Like, that's insane to me. And I want you all to think about the last time you were annoyed with, whether it's somebody in your life or somebody that works for you. Likely you were annoyed because of unmet expectations. But did you clearly define what your expectations were? Did they even know that was an expectation? Right. And sometimes I think that, you know, we assume that everybody knows what we know, and we assume that everybody thinks the way that we think, and that is really not true. Which is why, right, like when I lean into the strengths thing, and the tool I use is Clifton Strengths, and the chances of somebody having the same top 5 strengths as you in the same order is 1 in 33 million. And even if you find that 1 in 33 million, you've been raised differently, you may have different values, you've had different life experiences, like literally no two people are the same. So when you think about leadership styles, right, we hear about transformational leaders and servant leaders and all of this stuff. Well, really, you know what? There's as many different leadership styles as there are people. And that's why there's so many books written on leadership, because it's like, what are those 5 things I need to be a great leader? Well, it depends, because your 5 things are different than my 5 things. And honestly, it's about creating that that place of trust and that psychologically safe workplace. It's about understanding and knowing your people. How do they want to be appreciated? How do they want to be recognized? Some people don't want to be in front of the group and getting, you know, the big wow. Some people say they don't, and they do really like it. Like, I do think it's motivating, whether they, you know, but some people are like, I don't want a gift. I just want to thank you. Or, you know, and if you think about the love languages, there's a really similar thing about words of appreciation in the workspace. So, you know, it's just all of that. It's creating that place where people feel like they belong. And, you know, millennials get such a bad rap because people are like, oh my gosh, millennials are ridiculous. You know what? They're just vocal about what they want. Whereas generations before, it was like put up and shut up. Whereas millennials are like, no, I want a place where I feel like I belong, where I feel like I'm making a difference. And honestly, it doesn't matter if you're the person sweeping the floor or if you're the CEO of the company. If you feel like you belong and you feel like you're making a difference, that's what people want. That's what everybody wants.
Well, and we taught them to be vocal, didn't we? There's a reason we taught them to be vocal. When they got out into the workforce, we wanted them to get the life that they wanted. So we can't harass or harangue somebody for doing exactly what we've taught them to do. I love Tracy's comment about treating your team and your customers with empathy. And I think this, what you're saying as well, comes back to treating our teammates and the people responsible to us with respect. I think a lot of times what goes wrong is people are really good at their job and then they're elevated into a leadership position. And perhaps they shouldn't be in that leadership position. Maybe they're in the wrong seat on that bus. And so now, not only have they not been trained to be a leader, but they don't have an aptitude to be a leader. So we're coming into conflict because there's not a mutual respect happening. If I'm going to sit there and come at something sideways instead of direct as a leader should, so you know where you're standing, and we get rid of that 50% of uncomprehension, then it does start with picking those right people. How do you go about doing that in an organization?
Well, I think it's, I get very passionate about this because, you know, what's the best way to take your star employee from hero to zero, throw them in a leadership position that they're not ready for? And it's really about assessing, do they want it even, right? Some people are perfectly happy. Like you look at somebody that's doing a fantastic job, and, you know, it's the old Peter principle. It's like, we're just going to keep promoting you to your level of incompetence, where it's like, maybe they don't want to be a leader. Maybe they're perfectly happy where they are. So again, everything starts with first getting to know yourself and then getting to know your people. And you can't assume that everybody wants to move up the ladder. You can't assume everybody wants to be in that leadership role. And you can see, and I've seen it so often, where it's like, this person has just amazing natural leadership ability, so we're going to promote them, but you don't give them any training. So yeah, they might be a good natural leader, they may not want it. And then more often than not, you see them crash and burn, and you see this best employee go, I can't handle this stress, so I quit, I'm leaving, I'm going to another job. So have that conversation, get to know those people. What are the favorite parts of their job? If it's, you know, empowering other people on the team and teaching and training and doing all of this stuff and leading that whole person, it's like, okay, maybe they can be a leader, but then give them the tools, give them some training to have the difficult conversations. Don't just assume that they can go in and do it. It's a whole different skill set from being the star performer and getting the work done to empowering other people to get the work done. It's a big shift. So I love working with those mid-level managers to, right? And I said this morning, I was at another meeting and I'm like, mid-level leaders are like the new sandwich generation, because they're dealing with like senior level management and are expected to cascade things down. And then they're dealing with the people that report to them that are like, why are they making these decisions? And I'm like, it's like the meat in a sandwich. If it's bad, the whole thing's bad.
Doesn't matter how good the bread is. And it's about managing the whole person. We've spoken loads about that, but you cannot get that message out enough. Leanne, if you're okay, can you take us through how you manage that? The leadership position was offered, there was some back and forth, but ultimately you came to terms and decided elsewhere. What did that process look like?
A lot of communication, a lot of just asking questions, both of us asking questions and being open to share honestly with each other, because there was a disconnect between, so you mentioned already about are they really clear on the expectation, and I made sure that they were really clear on the expectation, and the initial response was that yes, I want it. Because I think people do feel like, you know, a promotion feels good. Like that's what it feels like. So the initial was yes, but when we broke down, you know, some of the aspects of those expectations, it still was clear that he didn't really understand, that he didn't really get it. And there was, you know, I would kind of go through in great detail, to be honest, exactly what it was that was going to be required. And the disconnect was that the information that I was giving and what he was taking in was different. So what started happening was I started saying, I think we need to really just take a step back and look at, do you really want this? And do you see yourself in this light? Can you see yourself in this light? Because he was fantastic. And actually what ended up happening was that as he explored what he really wanted, he became clear that being part of the team at all wasn't actually what he really wanted. And he really discovered, this is what I want for me, and kind of, you know, his own thing. And I respect that. And we parted ways, you know, in a mutually respectful way, and I have so much love for him and support what he does, and he's still supporting what I do. But it was really interesting how it unfolded. I never expected it to end in that way, but it really was about just getting really real with each other, really honest with each other, and having, as you said, that safe space to be able to say exactly what it was that he was feeling or that I was feeling, and make sure that that we both knew what we wanted. And even if that meant that we weren't working together, we could still support each other to have what we wanted. And that's how
money only goes so far. Hey, money and titles are a great, if you're going to put the lure on the hook and go fishing, you want that all day long. You want that good minnow that's going to get your big fish. And that is your titles and your financial salary that you're going to offer for that. But that's just the beginning. You still have to monitor it and pull it in, right? Lisa, it's about dealing with the whole person in a human way. Susanna and I talk about that a lot, is, don't forget that's a human under that skin. That's a person with feelings. I love how you said, Josh, about if you're dealing with it in that moment, they don't have to take that emotional baggage with them all along. We look at the stats. Melanie and I know these stats inside note. You look at the stats on mental health and people not feeling fulfilled. A lot of that comes from that baggage you were talking about, Josh, of not being able to let it go and move forward. Like Sandy said, focus on the move forward. So what will be a good takeaway from this particular session before we start our next conversation on culture and engagement and getting to that productivity?
I absolutely love that story that Leanne just told, because I think that's it exactly. You can't, you can lead the horse to water, right? But you can't make it drink. And you have to feel like, okay, have I done everything that I can without going into some hardship? And she really clearly talked about from the EOS system, entrepreneurial operating system, that get it, want it, and capacity. Right? Do you get it? I'm going to explain it again. Do you get it? And sometimes people just don't get it. And then do you really want it? And then do you have the capacity to be able to take that on? So I think what I would really like for everybody here to do is just to start thinking about your own strengths. When I talk about strengths, it's not something you're good at. It's something that that really energizes you. You enjoy, but it also energizes you. And start thinking about that for yourselves. It's like, what could I do all day long? What do I feel so, Lori and I could talk about this all day long, but it's like, what really energizes me and what do I want to do more of? And I think that's the start. And then start asking those questions of your employees. And then you'll start to build that psychologically safe space and get to know your people a whole lot better, and maybe even do some job crafting.
I love that. And don't be afraid of the answers, right? Most times your employees and team members will surprise you with the simplicity of their answers. Thanks so much to everybody coming in. Thanks for those who had never been here before and had come in today. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I hope that you'll connect, most importantly, with somebody you've never met before and have a virtual coffee and grow to success and energy the way that we do in this room. And I hope to see you back again. And Lisa, it's only a matter of time before I'm bugging you for the next date. So everybody go. Thanks so much for making it the very best time of my week.